Hey there, my name is Sjofors, and I'm going to talk about the psychology of pricing today. Very interesting stuff. So stick around and learn something you probably don't know. So, who am I? Well, um, my name is Sjofors. I'm called the Price Whisperer, and I'm involved in a lot of business organizations. And of course, I have my new book out there called The Price Whisperer as well. I've been an expert in pricing for many years now, and one of the most interesting things when it comes to pricing is actually the psychology behind pricing. Psychology behind pricing? What does that mean? Well, it means a lot. The first thing it means is that as we look at prices sets a message of the quality and the benefit of a product or a service. And if if we are being presented with prices that are much lower than we thought, than we expected, the message becomes this can't be any good. And I mean, we've all been there, right? We hold something in our hands. It could be physical or metaphysical. It could be a product. It could be a service. And we look at the price and we say, I kind of want to buy this. But no, this is not good enough. The price says that it's not good enough, and it could be that the we just don't believe it's going to be good enough. So for that reason, we don't buy it, despite the low price or because of the low price. And this, interestingly enough, was discovered in research by a guy called Torsten Veblen, and I think it was in 1903 or 1905. And what he did was that he looked at actual sales data for office supplies. So this obviously already it works in what you might call it in B2B, and not only in consumer sales. The price sets an expectation of quality and benefit, right? So that's the first point when we're going to talk about the psychology of price, right? The other oh, there are more things to talk about here. The other thing that is that we need to realize that all our purchases are made in context. Yes, we make our purchase decisions many times, again, whether it's B2B or B2C, in a blink of an eye. And what we are using is we're using what's called heuristics, which is our prior experience of maybe the vendor. It's our expectations of benefits, is how we are being influenced by advertising, what we have read about a product or a service, maybe what we have read in review, websites and so forth, right? And it is obviously it is also influenced by the circumstance around the purchase itself. I used to say, this is jokingly, of course, but I used to say that assuming you're in the car with a sick child and your fuel is getting low, your willingness to pay for a fill up, if you're on the way to the hospital with that sick child, is probably higher than if you're on the way to the in-laws, right? So the circumstance greatly affect what we are willing to pay and how you can price your product or service. Obviously, retailers are good. I mean, they've been retailers are good with this because obviously they've been retailing for more than 100 years, right? I don't really know when the first real retailers came. Obviously during the Middle Ages there were stores for making shoes and so forth, but I don't know if we can call them retailers. Anyway, the so they are very good at that, and this is why product that lives on an end cap, for example, are more expensive. Products at the checkout is more expensive, and obviously we know statistically that soft drink at the checkout on a sort of per liquid ounce based is 4 times, 5 times at least as expensive as the same as the same product in the back of a store on a shelf and in a bigger bottle, right? And customers are well prepared to pay that extra just for the convenience. And we have a similar situation with food. You know, you look at that $13 burrito. Somebody told me the other day, and it's going to cost you $35 to have, with the burrito, to deliver to your house, to your home. And people gladly pay that because the circumstance around the purchase is different. You don't have to go to the store. You don't have to stand in line, and so forth. So the circumstances around the purchase makes a difference, and that's also psychology, meaning it's the external factors and it's the internal factors, and we make our purchase decision in a blink of an eye, but all of this is being considered, right? But we don't know it. We don't know it because it happens so quickly, and it happens by our sort of what do you call it, the oldest part of the brain, the lizard part of the brain, right? And they're all emotional, and psychology and emotions obviously are very tightly knit, and we think we make rational decisions, but in fact we're not. So that's the bad news. If you think we are, you should rethink that particular issue. Now, all this that it makes us make our purchase decision is something that I call the decision landscape and the decision dynamics. And what's interesting though is that once you know that decision landscape, once you know the decision dynamics, once you know how all of these affect what your customers are willing to pay for your product in your market, in whether it's B2B or B2C, once you know that, you can leverage it, right? You can make sure that you're selling your product or your service, and I'm saying this could be B2B, this could be B2C. It works the same way. Selling that product or service, once you know these how everything influenced the purchase decision, you can leverage it, so that you leverage what gives you the maximum, what's called purchasing power. And purchasing power is the ability to charge higher prices than competition and not lose sales volume. Getting more profits, right? And not only is it interesting in that you need to know it, but there are ways of finding out in pricing research. With pricing research, you can understand, if it's done right, that is. With pricing research, you can understand how both the internal factors and the external factors in that decision landscape affects how you can set prices, and will enable you to set prices that leads more to more profits and often higher sales volume too at the same time. Wouldn't that be good, right? What will your sales volume going to go up, your profits are going to go up, you're going to get more resource in your company to develop more product, to define more services, to increase your marketing spend, even hiring better, more expensive people, right? And once you know all that from pricing research, which is pricing research is a particular kind of market research, call it market research on steroids, because it really tells you, again, when done right, how everything around the purchase affect what your customers are willing to pay. And if you know what they're willing to pay, if you know how everything influences that purchase, you can make sure that you price yourself hopefully for the maximum profits, or at least the maximum revenue, which are two different pricing points. And the reason is very simple, because it gives you the resource to expand your company, to leapfrog competition, to increase your market share at higher prices, to become the market leader in your business, in your market. And wouldn't you want that? Right? Of course you want that. Right? And replacing guesses and gut feel and maybe looking at a competitor with hard data on how the decision landscape looks like, how the decision dynamics works, and how you can set prices to drive your company to the next level. Increasing shareholder value with many times, right? Do pricing research. That's the bottom line. Replace guesses and gut feel, like I said, with hard data. It's going to make a huge difference for you. Anyway, so that was a little bit about the psychology of pricing. There's more I can talk about. And I'm going to do another little video on how you can use the psychology of pricing to, as you present prices in ways that leads to higher willingness to pay, right? So, but this is all for now. I hope you found this of interest, and I'm looking forward to see you on the next video. Thank you so much, and you'll have a good day.